Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I know there are 100 different places that you could have been, so very grateful that you chose to be here with us this morning. Our session is on advancing women in technology. For those I haven't met yet, my name is Dinal Limbachia. I am a gender equality expert and former global programs lead from UN Women. So I'm delighted to be here to be moderating this conversation. So before I introduce the speakers, I would like to extend a huge thank you to HCL Tech and to HCL Software for their collaboration in putting together this panel. So thank you to all of the colleagues for putting this together. For those listening online and for those in the room as well, please engage on social media. You can use the hashtags Red Women Foundation, HCL Software, or HCL Tech at Davos. Thank you. So I am delighted to be joined by some of the best women that I know to have this conversation with. First, Cherie Blair, thank you so much for joining us. Cherie is the founder of the Cherie Blair Foundation for Women. Romina Gingasu, founder of Red Women Foundation. Thank you so much for joining. And Jill Kouri, who's the Chief Marketing Officer at HCL Tech. Thank you so much for joining. So our conversation is on advancing women in technology, and no conversation can begin without giving you a stat first. And the one I'm going to give you is from the World Bank, which is that women still only make up 28% of the workforce in tech-related fields. So not 40%, not even 50%, 28%. So we still have a long way to go. And what I want to do with this conversation is have it a little bit different. We know the problems that exist. We don't want to reiterate them, but we want you to walk away with solutions, with best practices, with key takeaways that you can start implementing within your own companies and communities straight away. So, Cherie, I'm going to come to you first with
Absolutely.
the first question. So, when we think about advancing women in technology, you know, sometimes we might have a very typical sort of Western view on what that might mean. But with your foundation, your remit is very much global. So could you talk to us a little bit about some of the work that your foundation has been doing, specifically in the emerging tech space and in different parts of the world as well? And more importantly, what has been the impact of those projects? Because we know what gets measured gets done. So I would love to hear a little bit more about some of your work. Thank you.
Well, first of all, let me also thank HCL Tech and, of course, my dear friend Romina here for inviting us today. You're quite right to say when people think of people working in tech, when people think of people who are owning businesses in tech, they see a white male. And if they think female, they think white female. But the reality is, across the world, there are plenty of non-white women achieving amazing things. My foundation is set up to enable women to grow, expand their businesses. And I think of Van Dam. We work in Vietnam, and I actually met Van Dam, and she's an incredible woman. When she joined our mentoring platform, she already was in tech. She's a software developer, but she had one site, 50 employees. At the end of the year mentoring program, she'd had doubled that. And when I went to visit her in Vietnam, she just heard the news that she was the first app developer in Vietnam to actually be approved as an Apple app developer. Those of you who do developing may know, I think, that it's easier to get in as a Google app than it is to get in as an Apple app. Well, that was a few years ago. Since then, she then became a mentor herself. She, since after that, she's also now one of our partners, helping us identify other women in tech that we can assist. Or I think of, go to Africa, I think of Damiola. Damiola is another woman in tech who was working with us in our Road to Growth programs, where we do a 6 to 8 week intensive course helping women with existing businesses grow their business. And her business is about affordable solar energy, because one knows across Africa this is a real issue, getting energy to the people, and particularly to those who need it most, the poorer people. And again, her business, since she's been on the program, has thrived, it's expanded, and she herself has now set up an academy to help other women and girls get into tech. And then honestly, yesterday here, I was walking around, I bumped into a woman from Kenya. This woman in Kenya has just started a new, she's just received $2 million funding for her business, and her business takes technology and it brings together all the data on the weather and also the information about soil across Africa to try and help develop, work out how to better use technology to help farmers do the right thing at the right time. So when you think next time of somebody in technology, think women, think non-white, and think people who are at the forefront of development.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I think you painted a really different and new picture for people that I hope everyone will take away from this conversation. Romina, I'd like to come to you next. So Red Women Foundation is relatively new, but your experiences, your career trajectory so far has been super interesting and typically in a male-dominated field. So can you talk to us a little bit about those experiences and how have those shaped what you're doing now with the Red Women Foundation?
Thank you, Dinal. Yes, indeed. My journey in university and the corporate journey was in a male-dominated field, but I took it as a positive, not as a negative impact on myself, because I was seeking to learn the corporate way. So I took from my managers and the best vice president the best way and the best lessons to learn this way. Of course, the tech field is seen as a male-dominating business, but I think we can change that, and it's about perception. It's about how we can send a message. For example, your company, HCL Tech and HCLSoftware, are present in so many countries, and this is important in advocating women in technology, because young girls that would like to study and will have like an object in their life, will see it in the future. Your presence in the country means a lot. They can go to study in the ITNC or not only, and then to dream to work for your company. So I think your company is already doing so much for the girls and for the women. Why not? They can start at any age a career in tech and software. And it's not only a male-dominated field. So it's about let's put it like this as a communication, and let's communicate it right.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, that's a great segue into the next question for Jill as well, as the representative of a company here on the stage and HCL Tech as well. What can you tell us about what HCL Tech is doing and software as well to increase the representation of women and not only bring them into the organization, but keep them there and elevate them into leadership positions? It's a journey, but can you share a little bit about yours so far?
Sure, yeah. Before I jump into that, I just want to thank both of you for joining today. And Dinal, it's great to see you again. HCL Tech partnered with UN Women, which is where Dinal was before her current role. And I thank all of you for joining today, because this is a place to make connections. And the connections that happened even between the two of you were quite organic, given UN Women were sharing our pavilion last year. And it's wonderful to see such great turnout here today. Cherie, I loved your examples of just individual women who are making a difference in the trenches, and we need to tell more of those stories. It doesn't have to be senior leadership who are at the very top of the organization. We need to have role models at every level. As Romina mentioned, we are in 60 countries, HCL Tech. We've got about 225,000 people. And the majority of our people are actually based in India. We're India headquartered, so about 75% of our workforce are there. In India, just these are broad statistics. IT is the highest employer of women. Financial services is next.
Right.
Consumer packaged goods is at the very bottom of the list. Our diversity inside of HCL Tech, it mirrors about that. About 30% of our workforce are women. And I think our HCL software team, your numbers might be a little bit higher than the broader HCL Tech population. We are absolutely on a journey. We are not to where we want to get to yet. I think every company, I was in a panel this morning, and I'll speak to that a little bit later, a diversity panel this morning. Every company is on a journey. No company has said, we've nailed it. We are where we need to be, whether that's related to diversity of any type, as well as the topic of inclusion, which I know we'll cover today. So I'm proud to be at this organization. I joined about 2.5 years ago. One of the reasons I joined was because during the interview process, I was able to meet our chairperson of the board, Roshni Nader Malhotra. She's an amazing woman, amazing female leader, and also just an amazing leader. And hopefully at some point we won't have to caveat female when we talk about senior women leadership. She has a great vision for the organization, and she is extremely aligned with our CEO, C. Vijaya Kumar. And we are very proud to have 1/3 of our board of directors as women. The board of directors is extremely important in setting the tone for the journey of an organization. We're doing a lot of things that most companies are doing related to written metrics that we measure regularly across all areas of DEI, and we'll get into that a little later if we want to. But I guess I'll summarize by saying we're on a journey. We need to keep having these conversations, and we need to keep spotlighting women who are making a difference all over the place, because we won't have more women join tech if they don't see women like them. So happy to be here, and thank you for leading the dialogue, Dinal.
Thank you so much, Jill. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's a journey. It's, it's not a straight line, but I think, we can look left and right and learn from each other as well. And particularly for young women coming up in their careers, you want to be able to see women who look like you, women who sound like you, women who have similar backgrounds to you, to be able to also see yourself in those roles. So I think you really nailed it there. Cherie, I want to come back to you. We're at Davos. Again, typically male-dominated
Always,
space.
I'm afraid.
And, I think it's incredible that we have panels like this. There's definitely opportunity to have more. And, more opportunities to spotlight and elevate the voices of women. What do you think needs to happen between now and next year's World Economic Forum so that more of this is happening?
Well, I think, first of all, we really have to address the whole question of stereotypes, really following on from what Jill was saying about women need to be able to see women in the roles that they aspire to.
Right.
And I think that we survey the women we work with, and 70% of them said they had been affected by stereotypes in one way or another. And one of the things that we do in our programs, because we're talking here about business training, is we make sure that the training we provide is women-centered. Because I think often, if you talk about business training, you might say, well, business is neutral, how to run a balance sheet, how to run a business, what's sex got to do with it? But I think that so often in the materials and the learning that are placed before the classes that you're going to, they have a male face. So we very much pride ourselves in ensuring that the examples we use, the training we give, has women's experience and a women's face in the center. I'll give you an example, because we have our Her Venture app. I talked about the Road to Growth and the mentoring program. They are aimed at perhaps slightly wealthier women who can speak English, who have existing business. The Her Venture app, which has reached now 100,000 women in the last couple of years, is very much designed as an affordable, I call it a nano MBA, and it's business training, whether you want to start a business. 25% of the people who download the app actually have a business idea but don't know what to do with it, whether you want to expand into marketing, whatever it is. All the journey and it's a 6 to 7 minute little journey we take you on with questions to help you grow your knowledge. All the examples are based around a woman's experience. The extraordinary thing about that is we've discovered that this free app that you can download, and it's in the local language, it's in Vietnamese, it's in English in Nigeria, it's in Kiswahili in Kenya, it's in English in South Africa, but it was in, I can never remember the name of the Indonesian language, but in Indonesia. But 10% of men download that because they're not put off by downloading an app that says her venture. And they don't seem to be put off by learning about business skills from a story about a woman who's running a coffee shop. But we find time and time again that when women see something and all they see are male faces in the examples, they think, well, that's obviously not about me. So one of the things we can do is start ensuring that when we are whatever we do, we make sure that women's voices and women's faces are on that as well. It's not just about saying women's leaders. It's about how are we teaching people? What are the examples we're using? So I think that's really important. And we're about to launch in March a research we did with Intuit about the latest thing in technology. Well, I'm sure you know what the latest thing after this is, but to us it's generative AI, isn't it? And guess what we know? More men than women are accessing generative AI, whether it's in their pleasure or in their business. It's like over 50% of men, only about a third of women. When you look at people who are starting businesses in that field, it's again almost double the number men to women. And so I'm not going to, we're going to launch it properly in March. But one of the things when we did our survey that women time and time again told us was, we want more teaching, we want more learning. Tell us how to use this software and we will be delighted to embrace it and make it help us achieve our goals. So always think about women. Stop thinking, I'm sorry. Sounds terrible. Stop thinking about those white men. think diverse.
Yes.
Absolutely include those white men. Yes. Absolutely. But it doesn't have to always be about a white man.
Yes. There we go. There's our sentence from this
But
session.
we're happy to see so many white men in the
We
audience.
are.
Yes.
We are indeed. We are indeed.
Yes.
And because that means that they care about it, that they want to join in. But I'll tell you a little story. We had a program with the US State Department in Delhi, and we were incubating. It was called She Can. We were helping women with businesses, and they at the same time were doing a parallel business in kind of idea with tech businesses, and I went to present the certificates at the end, and so they combined the two groups together for the presenting of the certificates. And then we had a discussion, and the women were talking about stereotypes, and one of them was saying, you know, she goes to an interview for a job and the first thing they ask her is she married, and, you know, does she have a family? And then there was quite a lot of contribution from the women. Then one of the brave and foolhardy men stood up and said, well, I don't know what you're, one of the tech ones, I don't know what you're talking about. She said, if I was asked whether I was married or not, I wouldn't think that was a problem. And what it showed, the women all turned and said, but do you not understand that the reason they're asking women about their marital status isn't a positive?
Yeah.
It isn't because they regard it as a positive. For a man, it absolutely is, well, it's neither here nor there. That's why they don't ask you. And he looked and he said, oh, yeah, he'd never thought about that before. So it's great to bring us all together in the room and share the different experiences that we have so that we're more aware of how they shape the way we see the world. So I come back to stereotypes again.
There we go. Full
And
circle.
I think it's also just related just to that broader topic of unconscious bias
Yep.
training. Some of that, things of that ilk, I don't think there's ill intent,
No.
but the perception is quite negative. So we offer unconscious bias training to all of our employees, and it's just something that's so mission critical for ongoing education, because I think a lot of people have aha moments when they take this unconscious bias training.
But it's so critical too for the sustainability of your business.
Yeah.
And this is why I think it's very important that those of us who believe in this subject should stand up and say, this isn't some kind of woke kind of tick box exercise.
Yeah.
This is actually about how do we in the 21st century ensure that we get the best talent from wherever it comes from, not just because it makes us feel good, but because our business needs the best talent to flourish and survive so that we flourish and survive.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the interesting things I've heard is diversity, equity, and inclusion is leadership training. It shouldn't be seen as something that's extra. It really is something that advances us as individuals. And if we don't have diverse individuals, diverse perspectives, part of conversations and decision making, then it impacts businesses. And it's, DEI 101, but I think it still is worth repeating. Romina, I want to come to you.
Yeah.
For those in the room and perhaps those listening online, there may be a young girl who's listening to this conversation thinking about a career in tech, maybe with HCL Tech or HCL Software. What advice would you give to her based on your experiences?
So never lose your confidence and look around for opportunities because they exist. My foundation, Red Women Foundation mission is clear. We create communication bridges between government, companies, NGOs, and for a positive impact for the women. We did that twice in 2023, one in Romania and once in Italy, and had a great impact. So we are creating opportunities for you. So look around, speak to us. How can I say? Follow your passions, and I'm sure you can achieve a great career.
Great.
And also I have an idea that I wrote that innovation, it's a collective process. That's why I believe very much in this collaboration, governmental, private company and NGO. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Jill, my last question is for you. Looking forward, where do you see HCL Tech in the next 5 years? Given everything we've just discussed, the context of the world right now, what does HCL Tech look like in 5 years' time?
Well, I hope that our gender diversity ratio continues to go north at a little bit more of a rapid pace than we've been at. It's hard when you've got 250,000 people. A lot has to happen to make those percentage points go up. But what I'd like to see us be doing is making a bit more of a broader external commitment to our specific goals and targets. In the panel that we had earlier, which was to launch the, Mohit, if you could cue the slide, the Inclusion at Work report, there was a lot of discussion about and I agree with you on the partnership between NGO, corporate, and even academia is very involved in inclusion at work, to make sure companies are not going to get penalized for setting big, hairy, audacious goals. We had a representative from HP on the panel whose CEO made a public statement that he wanted, I think he said 50% racial diversity at the company by a certain year. Accenture has made a commitment that they want 50% gender diversity by 2025. I remember when they set the goal, it was a few years ago. I don't know if they're going to make it, but to set those targets and be able to demonstrate the journey to get there, I think is critically important. I think we're doing a lot of the right things at HCL Tech. We've expanded. We have about 25,000 people in some of our nearshore delivery locations like Romania, and we're seeing a lot of female talent. So I think you're right. I think women are, we're seeing some really bold women come into our nearshore locations, and I think we've got our employee value proposition, finding their spark at HCL Tech. But to Cherie's point earlier, I would like our employee engagement team to continue to socialize those stories broadly in all 60 countries where we do business, so people can see that there are role models at every level, and have the courage to apply to join HCL Tech, even if they believe it is, and it is, a more male-dominated industry. So, continue the journey, continue to work with our board of directors who are very focused on this cause. And I do think ongoing training, particularly around the topic of inclusion, is mission critical.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks so much. I want to come to you all one last time for any key takeaways. If there's one thing that the people in this room or listening online should take away from this very important conversation, what would it be? Cherie, I'm going to come to you first.
Well, first of all, we're never going to change the world on our own. We have to do it together. So I'd love to echo this theme of partnerships that we've talked about. Red Foundation and ourselves, we're in a partnership. We'd love to do a partnership with HCL. We have great partners in PayPal and Bank of America. Together, it's the most important thing. We have an ambitious goal to reach 1 million women by 2030.
Amazing.
But we cannot do that alone. We can only do it in alliances with like-minded people. So we can, together, change the world.
Brilliant.
We can, right? So big companies like big tech with universities, they can change the world. And it's good that we are communicating it in a nice way. And I hope this message will arrive to all the young girls and women.
Thank you. Jill?
Sure. I think this is going to be more directed to people who are listening online. We haven't talked about STEM and the lack of women coming up through K through 12, high school age, who are avoiding careers in STEM. So I think I want to extend the partnership further into even early stage education, which HCL Tech is doing through offering apprenticeship programs for high school graduates, not even college graduates. And then we're doing training inside of our organization. And once they complete a certain stage of training, we will offer to pay for their 4-year or 2-year college education. So I think I want this partnership to go beyond. I'd also like anyone who's in the room or online who is committed to the cause to reach out to probably all of us. We've talked about forming a little share group. Some of us in the earlier panel talked about sharing and trying to get this inclusion at work report on every corporate board member and executives' desks.
Yes.
But we all need to join together. And again, you're all here in the room. And if you're listening online, thank you. HCL Tech is very interested in partnering, and hopefully we will be back here next year on the same stage, but with more progress to report.
Definitely. Fantastic.
I absolutely appreciate a company that has employment programs.
Great.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So that brings us to the end of the panel questions. Are there any questions from the audience at all that you'd like to ask anybody? Thank you. Yes, go ahead. We'll just get you a mic.
Yeah, I would like to ask a question. Well, it's great to have you here, and thank you very much for your presentation.
I think you need the mic for the online people. I mean, we can hear you perfectly well, but I think it's more for
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for being here and listening to your point of view. It's so important. I would just like to ask a more factor-based question, namely on what you showed about the company's surveys, showing that the estimated costs of racial issues at work should be around 10% of the revenue. Could you explain to us how you have calculated that?
Alex, are you able to comment on that? Alex was part of the team that created that report, and this was just an ad hoc decision I made to talk about it because I was so compelled. It just came out, so I don't.
Yeah, thanks, Jill, for the shout out of our reports here. This is reports we've worked on over the last 2 years, bringing together, as Jill said, business, academia, journalism. I'm a journalist by training and community as well. And to answer a specific question about that data point, one of many that we found surveying workers of color, what we did there was ask those workers, what do you estimate that cost to your companies to be? And the result we came up with was 10% of revenue, as you saw. But even as an executive leader, if you look at that number, and even if we're off by a factor of 50%, right? Thinking about how much you could really grow that revenue by getting these issues right is outstanding. Like if you could grow that by just 5% even by handling these issues correctly, is really an astonishing.
How many people did you survey?
Yeah, we surveyed for. Oh, what is? Why are they thinking that that these issues are costing the company? Yeah, I mean.
Is it the change of workers, or is it losing time, or what is happening?
Yeah, it's a combination of factors. This was just asking them to estimate what that would cost, but it can be everything from reputational risk, it can be everything from retention to retention. There are all sorts of different factors that could be part of this. So, one of the other things we asked as part of this report, for example, was what was the risk of a lawsuit hitting your company? Have you thought about filing a lawsuit based off the way you were treated at work? Think about what that reputational risk could be to a company, not just the legal risk, right? Or all of those factors can combine to hitting revenue and top line revenue.
Can I add something here? Because I think that what you're talking about in the race for talent, in the race for progress, is you've got to make sure that you use all the talent that you have. And if you think about it that way, if we're ignoring whether it's on the basis of race or whether it's on the basis of sex, such a huge portion of the population, we're not finding the talent, and it's like driving a twin-engine plane but only using one of the engines, and that doesn't, that doesn't make sense. The estimate from McKinsey and the World Bank is that if women were equally engaged in the market, whether it's employment or as self-employed, as businesses, there would be $5 trillion more to the global GDP. That's, not to be discounted. But I'm intrigued because we have someone in the audience here, and I'm thinking, sure, that is a racing logo on your women in Formula One. Is that a thing?
He has a panel in the afternoon. His panel is in the afternoon, so. You're not allowed to answer right now.
Okay, watch this space. We'll have to come this afternoon and see you talk about it. But
yeah.
Yeah, it's thank you for the question, because to be honest, I'm sitting here slightly uncomfortable. I'm the father of twin daughters, so I fully understand the situation, and I'm very empathetic to the cause, but I work for an industry which is, women are grossly underrepresented. And I wonder why that is, and I'm very much in line with what you were saying when you said we don't need to just get the numbers up for, just to fit a statistic. We are missing out on something which is very valuable.
Yes.
And when I see, there can be in fact, probably you guys are as tech-centric as we are, but Formula One is all about the car. We put all our effort into every bit of aerodynamics in that car. And that we tend to be at a very techie end of the spectrum. In fact, most of my engineers resent the fact that we've got a driver involved because they can't control him. They can't just turn him down, turn him up. But do we have to have a driver? Please get IA.
But if they had women drivers, surely they'd be so much better.
But this is the point: is these engineers are missing the fact that there's a whole thing there about it, that it's still a racing driver who's a human being,
yes.
And all of what we do is about integrating with the human beings. It's all ergonomics and that factor. When you're in a tech industry, you feel that day by day. You think there's a lack of empathy here. There's a lack of synergy with technology and human beings, and women would fill that gap. So if we employed more women, we would actually be doing a better job. And that's the key message that I think is missing. If we employ more women, we can't just go out and brag about it. It's not like we can say, oh, we've got 50%. We can actually be more productive and more effective and more competitive if we have more of that resource that we're not using. But to come to your point, to do that, we need to have people who are receptive to that input, because at the moment that's also an issue. That, you know, when you
and I mean, even
it looks
to
like
add,
we've got another. I was going to say we've got another question. So
I just want to add to your point that no one brought this up, so I have to say it now. Diverse teams who are in sales roles win more work. There is data, like mountains of data to demonstrate that. Having an all male or all white male sales team doesn't work anymore. That does not work. And diversity of thought is so critical. So I appreciate the point. It extends so much further even.
If I could come back to a point you
no,
made.
I don't think you can, because I think
I just want to say that your company, from 5,000 employees, 1,000 are women at this moment, after employment programs in collaboration with the universities of Bologna, Oxford, and Harvard. So I know very well the insights. So
Okay, we'll take the last question. Go ahead.
Sure. I just also want to, with all due respect, and also just push the men in the room a little bit. I think working in this space for the past 15 years, I've been hearing the comment that I have a daughter, and so of course I care about this issue, and I think we still haven't seen progress. You can empathize with it, but until you are talking about supporting and building the pipeline and maybe raising up, you say, I have a direct report who's a woman and she's doing amazing things and here's what she's accomplished, I think is more powerful. I'm a former McKinsey employee as well. And,
we love your report. We love the reports.
And I think the Women in the Workplace report over the past couple of years has directly looked at the pipeline, and that if we don't start thinking about women in entry-level jobs and promoting them all the way through, we can't ask the question as to why there are no female CEOs.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much to our incredible panelists for such a engaging, dynamic conversation. I hope everybody in the room enjoyed it, and thank you to everybody watching online as well. So a big round of applause to you all. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.